There are some places in the United States where you can't give a house away. However, in the Kansas City metro area, there are some places where if a house hits the market, it will sell within 1 or 2 days. Here are the top 10 areas to buy a house in Kansas City according to the latest data. Now, stick around for number one because I have never seen such an increase in the number one area before, and I've never seen it since I've been tracking this data, so you're not going to want to miss out on this. Starting off this list is one of the only two areas in Johnson County, which is really surprising with this list. See, Shawnee is a small town in Johnson County, has a lot of small town charm with a lot of modern perks. You're going to find a bunch of coffee shops, local eateries, outdoor markets, tons of outdoor areas. The Shawnee area has a ton of history and also a fantastic school district. There are plenty of things to do in Shawnee, and it's also very, very close to downtown. There's a balance there. People love Shawnee because it's close enough to Kansas City's downtown area to get everything that you want, but it's also far enough away to avoid all the negatives of living downtown. You combine that with the top-rated school district, and you have one of Kansas City's most desirable areas to move to. Now, houses have been tough to come by in Shawnee. In 2025, there were less homes sold than in 2024, and we're just calculating the data from the first quarter of 2025 compared to the first quarter of 2024. In fact, in the months of January, February, and March, there were only 149 homes sold in Shawnee compared to 163 homes during the same time period last year. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean that prices went down. Since there was less supply with the same demand, that means prices went up. The average price point in Shawnee climbed 16% from $434,000 to $505,000. And the median climbed from $390 to $415, which was a 6% increase. Now combine those two numbers and you get an 11% increase year over year. And here's the kicker. If you want to get a Shawnee home, you're going to have to act pretty quickly. The median days on market for a home in Shawnee was 3 days. Like I said before, if you have a beautiful home in one of these nice areas, it will sell within the first few days on the market. That means that most homes are snatched up the moment that they are listed. So if you're not fast, then you're not going to be able to get a home in Shawnee. Now, if you're looking to move to Kansas City, the Shawnee area, or any other areas that we talked to and more in the Kansas City metro area, give us and our team a call, 816-4-MOVE-KC. Send us an email. We've helped tons of clients relocate from all over the country to Kansas City. We also help people who are in Kansas City watching right now, wanting to buy a home. We can help you too. 816-4-MOVE-KC is the fastest way to reach us. You can also email us as well, and we will get back to you very, very quickly. The number 9 area is Platte City. Platte City is located north of the Missouri River in Platte County. It's a quiet and some might say sleepy town, but real estate there is selling quickly and at a premium. If you don't know how we're getting these numbers, like I said before, we're taking the first 3 months of 2024, comparing them with the first 3 months of 2025, because when you do real estate, you do a year-over-year comparison. So we take the same time period and we compare them and we see. Now, Platte City is near the airport. It's close enough to Kansas City, about 20 to 25 minutes away from Kansas City, depending on what you want to do, but it is a highly desirable area. There's not that many homes that have hit the market, but the market in Platte City has gone up about 12% year over year. The average price point went up from $402,000 to $455,000. That's a big jump in 1 year, and the median price point jumped as well from $374,000 to $406,000. So you're going to be paying into the 400s for the average home in Platte City. Now, that's not to say that there aren't homes that are priced less than that or more than that. You're just going to have to look. But life is slow in Platte City. A resident who recently moved there said, "It's quiet, it's clean, but you're driving to Kansas City for anything fun." And I would highly agree with that. Being a Kansas City resident myself, there's really no reason for me to travel into Platte City unless I'm showing a home there, which I have before. But if you live in Platte City, there's plenty of reason to travel out into Kansas City. Now, if you stick around, I'm going to also tell you why I believe some of these trends are growing. Some of these smaller areas are growing quite fast. And I will give you a quick spoiler. The number 1 area on this list, like I said, it's experienced an increase that I've never seen before, but it's also a small town, so that's a hint. And I'll bet you're going to have a hard time guessing the area before we get to number 1. If you do, post it in the comments below, because I would have never expected this area to jump this much and to get to number 1. Number 8, we're staying on the Missouri side, moving over to another small town called Lone Jack. Now, Lone Jack barely made the list. Now, the only reason that it barely made the list is there were other areas that could have been included on this list, but just weren't that many homes to compare. There was an area that I was analyzing, and only one home had sold there within the last quarter. So it's hard to say whether that market has gone up or gone down because of the minimal homes that I can compare it to. And Lone Jack was almost in that criteria. I just made up this criteria. I basically said, hey, in the months of January, February, and March, there had to have been at least 10 homes sold there for it to qualify for the list, and Lone Jack barely squeaked in. There was 10 homes that sold in quarter one of 2025. And it makes sense too because the population of Lone Jack is super tiny. There's only about 1,400 people that live there compared to 67,000 in Shawnee and even Platte City's almost 5,000 residents. Lone Jack is a small area, and it's by far the most rural area that we have on the list. I've only shown like 3 homes in Lone Jack. One of them was a manufactured home that we didn't like. One of them had a busted septic system, and the other one we made an offer on and we could not get. This was not that long ago, and they ended up moving to a different area called Odessa, which did not make the list, but Lone Jack is much smaller than that. It's a very, very country feel. Now, me coming from Southern California, I've never lived anywhere like that before. When I drive out there, I'm taking a look at, the area. It's very, very rural. Houses are more spread out. There are some areas where houses are closer together, but it's pretty close to Kansas City, actually. It's 30 to 35 minutes depending on where you're going in Kansas City and where you live in Lone Jack. What's interesting to me is a lot of you people watching the channel, if you're coming from California or New York or Texas or something like that, and you're living in a major metropolitan area where there's tons of traffic, you might think 30 to 35 minutes is not too bad. I do that drive all the time. Well, now when you live in Los Angeles and you're driving 30 to 35 minutes, you're really not covering that much ground because of the traffic. But when you live 30 to 35 minutes from somewhere in Kansas City, you could be driving close to 30 miles out, depending on, how far away you are from the highways and the freeways. So you just want to keep that in mind. What's interesting in this research is that Lone Jack actually has a much younger median age than Shawnee and Platte City. That's not to say that you need to live somewhere just because of the age, but I found that this trend of younger people moving to rural areas is definitely continuing. I think what people are doing is they're moving from more populated areas. They're heading out to more rural areas because sure enough, the person who was looking in Lone Jack, my client, they were moving from a larger town called Lee's Summit, and they were moving out to an area like Lone Jack, and then they eventually ended up settling in Odessa. Another resident said, "It's beautiful, but you're going to have to drive 15 minutes for groceries or any type of fun." So it's up to you whether you like it or not, but here's the numbers. The average price point of a home in Lone Jack went from $438,000 in 2024 to $470,000 in 2025, which is a solid 7% increase. The median price point went up a whopping 16% from $390,000 to $455,000. That's a 12% increase. Moving on, number 7 is Liberty. Coming from a small town, we're going to a more suburban area with a great school district, Liberty, Missouri. I think that young families moving to Kansas City, if you want to live in the suburbs and you want a great school system and you want something that's still semi-affordable right now, Liberty, Missouri is a great place to look. The reason that Liberty, Missouri is so desirable is it's a little bit far out away from the city. It does definitely feel like a suburb, but it's got that tight-knit, community-oriented mindset because they throw the fall festival there. They have a lot of things to do downtown. A lot of people just kind of know each other in Liberty. It's got a lot of history as well. So it's got everything that you need. You got great schools, good parks, good history, but kind of without the hustle and bustle of the downtown metropolitan Kansas City area. In comparison to the areas that we've compared so far, Liberty by far has the cutest and most attractive downtown area. The Liberty Square is somewhere that you're going to want to visit. There's plenty of nice boutique shops there. There's also the Liberty Courthouse, which if you live in Clay County, which is the county that Liberty is located in, you're definitely going to have to get to pay your property taxes, personal property taxes, and all of that. There's over 500 acres of parks in Liberty. Now, the average price point of home in Liberty jumped up from $337,000 in 2024 to $382,000 in 2025. Again, that's the first 3 quarters, the first 3 months of the year making one quarter. That's a big jump, 13%. The median price changed from 315 to 355,000. That's another 13% increase. That means the Liberty market increased an average about 13% year over year. That's a big increase, but nothing that touches the number one area. You're going to have to keep on watching to find out where it is. But number 6 is North Kansas City. Now, before we get into North Kansas City, if you're watching this video and you haven't subscribed yet and you find this content valuable, it would mean the world to us, myself and our real estate team here, if you would subscribe to our channel and like this video, because it really does push it out to a lot of different people who this content would help. And it also helps attract people who would want to use our services to move to Kansas City. So like and subscribe would mean a huge thing, would mean a lot to myself and my team. Number 6, North Kansas City. We're staying in the Northland, moving a little bit south from Liberty to North Kansas City. Now, if you're new to the Kansas City area, you may not know anything about the geography here and the topography here and the terms that we use to describe things here. Now, when you hear somebody refer to something as the Northland, what they're typically meaning is that they're talking about an area that is north of the river, of the Missouri River, and on the Missouri side. That's the Northland. Now, North Kansas City is a different municipality that is within the Northland. It is right across the Missouri River. It is super close to downtown, and it's got its own charming downtown and really, really unique houses. When I was vlogging North Kansas City, which if you want to, you can stay on this channel and you can watch that vlog very shortly. One of the things about North Kansas City that's so unique is how the proximity to downtown. And you truly are living in a suburb. You've got the better school systems. The North Kansas City school system is really cool. You've got plenty of things to do, and it's super artsy. It's a very small town feel, but you're so close to downtown Kansas City. In fact, you're 5 to 10 minute drive, and you could be right in the heart of downtown. You could be in River Market. You could be at CPKC Stadium. All of those things are right at your fingertips. Now, I would describe North Kansas City as more urban hip than Platte City's more traditional small town vibe, or Lone Jack's rural vibe. But it's less polished than maybe Shawnee and Liberty. They're more established in Shawnee or Liberty and more suburban in Shawnee and Liberty. But there's a lot of interesting spots there. We used to go to church in North Kansas City. We used to go to a church called Emmaus, and it was on Armour Road. But there are a few cons of living in North Kansas City. The first one is that, again, this is an area that barely made the list because of how few homes there are to buy there. It barely creeped over that 10 home requirement for it to make it on this list. But the average prices of those homes, they grew from $301,000 on average to $313,000 year over year. And the median price point went from $255,000, which was very affordable, all the way up to $315,000, which is getting to, wow, you're paying $300,000 to live in North Kansas City. Seems like a lot, but that's a big 23% increase. That means homes in North Kansas City appreciated almost 14%, and that's huge growth in 1 year, especially when you consider that nationally, real estate only goes up about 5% year over year. So here's what one resident said. They said, North Kansas City has got this cool, artsy, young energy. You can hit a brewery, you can play pickleball, or just chill in a park. And another person said, it's close to everything in Kansas City, but you still feel like you're in a real small community. And I think that sums up why people love North Kansas City so much. Staying in Missouri, this time we're going south of the river to Cass County. We're going all the way south to a town called Belton. About 25,000 people in Belton. That's roughly 20 miles north of downtown Kansas City. It's going to take you about 20 to 25 minutes to get into the heart of downtown. But it's a unique blend of small town attraction, small town roots with more modern development. Belton, if you drive through Belton, you're going to see lots of commerce, lots of shops coming in there, lots of commercial going in there, and then also a few new builds down in the Belton area. There's a warm, very family-friendly vibe with residents kind of praising the neighborly feel of Belton. And there's also, they have their own annual fall festival. They have their Main Street markets. It's less artsy than like North Kansas City, not as polished as like a Shawnee or a Liberty, but it's way more in the city than a Lone Jack or a Platte City. Now, homes in Belton spiked this year. There were only 65 homes sold in Belton last year, and this year that number jumped all the way to 89 homes because they are building and people are moving, and inventory is becoming available there. And the average price point, the average home price jumped from $257,000 to $297,000, which was a big increase. That's a 15% increase. And then the median price point jumped from 258 to 291,000. So that's also a large increase. That's a 14% increase year over year. One local said, Belton is great for raising kids. There's parks, decent schools, and Casey is close if you need it. Now, I will say, I haven't heard raving reviews. I've heard raving reviews about the Liberty School District, about the Shawnee Mission School District. I've heard pretty good reviews about the North Kansas City School District. I haven't heard too much about Belton or Lone Jack. So if you are looking to move to Kansas City, we can help you do all of that research. We can connect you with residents who have put their schools into those school districts, whether they love it or whether they hate it. We can connect you with that valuable information, but you got to reach out, 816-4-MOVE-KC. And again, like and subscribe, comment on the video. Tell me what you think. Tell me what kind of content you want to see, because we're going to keep putting content out week after week. Okay, number 4. Now we're in the top 4. Remember that number 1 was an incredible increase. This number 4 area is one of Kansas City's most hottest and desirable areas. Before I tell you this, I'm going to tell you how much the prices here have increased, because it's kind of ridiculous. The average home in this area jumped from $581,000 to $713,000, which is a 22% increase. That's crazy to me, right? And the median price point jumped from $445 to $540, meaning that's a 20% year over year increase. What is this area? It is Prairie Village, one of Kansas City's most desirable areas. It's a city of about 23,000 people in Johnson County, only about 15 minutes away from downtown Kansas City, known for its beautiful tree-lined streets, charming homes, and kind of suburban, but more upscale suburban is the best way I would describe it. Upscale suburban vibe. It's a beautiful place to walk around. In fact, my wife and I take our kids often to Meadowbrook Park in Prairie Village. I even took my wife for a night out and at the inn at Meadowbrook in Prairie Village, and it was very, very enjoyable. It's a beautiful place to spend time, and if you do watch Parks and Rec, and you know Parks and Rec is a comedy show about a small town in the Midwest called Pawnee, Indiana. And they, during the show, they reveal that their rival town is a place called Eagleton, Indiana, because everything in Eagleton is nice. I think the joke was like, if you got arrested and were thrown into the Eagleton jail, they would, give you like cupcakes in the morning or like really nice amenities. That's what I think of when I think about Prairie Village. It is like Kansas City's Eagleton. It's a place where people are kind of upscale, more well-to-do. Now, you could say probably the same about Leawood, but I think Leawood is kind of like maybe a little bit older demographic, maybe a little bit more established. Prairie Village is kind of young, vibrant. It's everything that Kansas City, all of Kansas City kind of strives to be, and that's why homes are so ridiculously expensive there. One local said, Prairie Village feels like a bubble. It's safe, pretty, great schools, but you do end up paying a lot of money for it. I can guarantee you that when a well-maintained home that's appropriately priced in the Prairie Village area, when it hits the market, it's going to be gone within 1 or 2 days. I remember that when we were looking for a home in Prairie Village with one of my clients, we got there the first morning that it opened, and they already had 4 offers. By the time that we could get together, decide to write an offer, they had 13 offers. By the time we submitted, they had 20 total offers in Prairie Village. That's pretty ridiculous, but that is Prairie Village for you. Now, we've made it to the top 3. Before we get to the top 3, I can tell you that looking forward, I expected that number 3 and number 1 would be included on this list, but I've never really talked about the number 2 area. So stick around, we're going to find out what these top 3 areas are. As we get to the top 3 of this list, we reach Riverside, Missouri. This is probably the smallest town in terms of population on this list, and it's very, very tight-knit. It is almost as close to downtown Kansas City as North Kansas City is. Remember, that was prior on our list, but it's only maybe a couple more minutes away. 5 to 10 minutes from Kansas City via I-65 or I-29. Riverside kind of ties North Kansas City for almost the fastest commute, but definitely ties it for being the closest to downtown Kansas City. It beats out Liberty, it beats out Prairie Village, it beats out Shawnee and Belton. But with it being smaller, it almost didn't make this list. There's not that many homes in Riverside, and when they do become available, if they're not new construction, they do become snatched up. Now, the reason I say is if they're not new construction is because new construction does tend to sit for just a little bit. It sits for a little bit longer than you might expect. There are some homes that are new construction that hit the market and get snatched up, but there's a lot of new construction happening in Riverside because, number one, you have a great view of downtown Kansas City from a lot of Riverside. Number two, you are in the Park Hill School District, which is one of Kansas City's most desirable school districts. Number three, Riverside actually has its own private police force and its own snowplows and public services. What's nice about that is if you know anything about Kansas City proper, our public services are not necessarily the best. I will have to admit that. As much as I love living here as a resident of Kansas City, as much as I am a Kansas City apologist and advocate, every time that I have to call 911, and unfortunately I do live in a higher crime area, and sometimes I do have to call a little bit more, especially when you hear people shooting, and as it gets to spring, sometimes people shoot a little bit more and get a little bit more rowdy. But when you have to call 911, and you're put on hold for the umpteenth time, and you're on hold for 5 minutes, and they finally answer, and they say, 911, what's your emergency? By that time, the gunshots have stopped, and all that stuff. You do grow to appreciate a really tight-knit, well-run police force. When you're in Riverside, I remember I was showing a home in Riverside, and a lot of times when you show homes, they do have alarm systems, and they tell you how to get past those in the showing instructions, but in this case, I did not have any instructions of how to get past the alarm system. And so I set the alarm off. It was loud, but the Riverside police were there probably within, 5 minutes. They were very, very quick to respond. It was no business, no busyness. Just got there, said, hey, what are you doing? Okay, cool. I see you're showing a home. Can I get your card? And can I get a copy of your license? Cool. We're done. We're out. Also, I was showing homes in Riverside when it was cold, and they plow the streets there way faster than I've seen anywhere else in Kansas City. So I will say this about Riverside. There's also a really cool casino there called Argosy. We are planning on going there to enjoy the buffet. We don't gamble, but I do like casino buffets because I heard it's supposed to be really, really good. Now, getting to the numbers, the average price point of the home in Riverside increased from $595,000 to $727,000. 22% increase. That's a big increase. And then the median price point went up from $522,000 to $670,000, which is a 28% increase. Overall, that's a 25% increase when you combine those numbers year over year, almost unheard of for this area. So let's get to number two. Number two is an area that we stay in Missouri, and I am actually surprised that this area made the list. Number two is Grandview, Missouri. And we are including this area because it is making the first appearance on this list since I've been doing this for a little bit over a year. I'm also surprised because this area, Grandview, sometimes appears on the opposite list, on the list of quickly depreciating areas. One of the theories is what I'm seeing is that you see a lot of the areas outside of Kansas City increasing. You've got like a Belton, you've got a Lone Jack, you've got Platte City is kind of far out there. You got Shawnee and Liberty. I would say those are comparable areas from the Kansas and Missouri side. Those areas are increasing, and then a lot of the other areas that are decreasing are actually areas that are heavy with new construction, and also areas that are kind of closer to the city. So that's surprising to me. I would say I would expect it to just have like kind of like a rising tide raises all ships, where there's no areas in Kansas City that are depreciating, but there actually are some areas that are losing money year over year. So again, you're going to want to keep following the channel because we will give you all of that pertinent information, because you don't want to make a bad investment. If you make a bad investment and you buy a home this year and you try to sell it next year for in an area that's quickly depreciating, well, you're going to lose money. After you pay all the fees and everything, you're going to lose money and you're not going to be happy, which is why I put out content like this. Again, like this video, subscribe to this channel if you like this content. Now, Grandview, okay, about 25,000 people, which is a common number that we're dealing with. It's located in Jackson County, about 15 miles south of downtown Kansas City. It's going to take you about 15-20 minutes to get into Kansas City, but it's known for affordability. It's pretty cheap, and it is the cheapest area that is on this list. There's tons of industrial and commercial zones, though. I know people aren't really thrilled with that in Grandview, but it's kind of like a suburban, urban kind of area in Grandview. There's really not much shopping. There's really not much dining. You have your Price Choppers, grocery stores, strip malls, stuff like that, fast food. It doesn't have the boutique dining of Prairie Village or North Kansas City. You're going to have to drive to probably Country Club Plaza if you want to eat somewhere really, really nice. But it is very, very affordable. You have a ton of growth in quarter one, and like I said, this is the most affordable area that we're including on this top 10 list. So if you want to find a home in Grandview, give us a call, 816-4-MOVE-KC, right? So average prices grew from 186,000 to 231,000. Again, that's quarter one 24 to quarter two of 25. The median home prices went up from 172 to 230. Also, pretty healthy increase. That's a 30% year over year increase, which I've never seen in Grandview before. Again, I've seen Grandview included in the opposite list of top 10 areas where they've lost value in Kansas City, but first time for everything. Maybe I'll have to do a vlog out in Grandview. Before we get to number one, and again, number one is crazy growth. I've never seen an area in Kansas City grow this much in a year before, but we have some areas of honorable mention. Okay, so coming in at number 13 is Kansas City, Missouri, specifically Jackson County. Now, you might say, are you including all of Kansas City, Missouri? No. Well, what's happening is Kansas City, Missouri is a big place, okay? Kansas City, Kansas is its own place on this list. And what I try to do is I try to factor in Kansas City, Missouri as 3 different places. And I separate them into 3 different counties because Kansas City, Missouri is located in Platte County, is located in Clay County, and is located in Jackson County. Now, I sort them into KC-Mo Clay, KC-Mo Platte, KC-Mo Jackson. And KC-Mo Jackson County came up 9% year over year. Again, first 3 months of quarter one of 2025 compared to quarter one of 2024. The 12th place contender was Tonganoxie, Kansas. Now, again, another area that I would not have expected to be on this list. In fact, I commonly see Tonganoxie as an area that is losing money year over year, but Tonganoxie, Kansas went up 10% year over year. And the last almost made the list but didn't quite is Bonner Springs, Kansas. What is interesting about Bonner Springs is that it's one city located in 3 different counties. It's located in Leavenworth, Wyandotte, and Johnson County. Very, very strange, but that area came up 11%. Now, let's get to the top spot on this list. The top spot on this list is Buckner, Missouri. I'm going to be very, very honest with you. I've only shown 2 homes in Buckner while I've been working as a real estate agent in Kansas City. There was nothing much to do there, and there's not too many things. I mean, there's like fast food, basically a grocery store, and that's about it. Plenty of nature, very, very rural, but we see Buckner on this list all the time. And one of the questions that I always think about is why Buckner? Why do people want to move to Buckner? There's not that much to do there besides the parks and the nature areas. Honestly, to answer that question, I'm really not quite sure what makes Buckner different than a Lone Jack or an Odessa, but it is consistently on this list as one of the fastest growing places in Kansas City, in the Kansas City metro area. Now, it's about 30 minutes outside of downtown Kansas City, and there are sparse, gas stations, dining places, a few places over that, but it's nothing like Prairie Village, nothing like North Kansas City, nothing like Shawnee, nothing like Liberty. You're going to have to probably drive to Independence or, downtown for things to do. People who are moving to Kansas City or people who are buying homes in Kansas City are moving to Buckner because Buckner has gone up. Let me tell you some of the numbers because it's almost unbelievable. There were only 14 homes sold in Buckner last year in quarter one, and there were 14 homes sold in Buckner this year in quarter one. And last year in 2024, there were 200. The average price point was $264,000. This year, it jumped all the way up to $471,000. That's a 78% increase. That's crazy, right? This year, the median price point jumped from 217 to 383. That's a 78% increase. I've never seen numbers this high before. And granted, even though my method is to eliminate all the areas with 10 or less sales, even 10 sales is not a big sample size to choose from. When I looked at these 10 sales, they're not necessarily all new construction or anything like that. They're a mix of resale and they're a mix of, so there could be all sorts of factors that I don't know about. I mean, home buying is so intricate and so personal that there are so many different factors that can affect how a market is and compound that between why humans move and where they're moving to and how desperate they are to sell. And all of that stuff affects the local real estate market. My theory is this. Because Buckner offers a tight-knit rural community where neighbors get to know each other, and then you're not too far away from Kansas City, it appeals to people who are looking for a rural community, which you see on this list. There's plenty of rural areas that have made this list. And then number 2, when you're coming from an area like a bigger city, and you're trying to move to a rural area, this is a great target. It's relatively cheap still, although if it continues on this trend, it's going to be crazy unaffordable. But I don't think this trend is going to continue. I would expect it to kind of level out here. But there's all sorts of reasons why Buckner is on this list. But honestly, I'm just gonna be real with you. I don't understand what makes Buckner so special compared to other places. Now, if you want to tour some of these places on this list, I've created this playlist just for you.